In this webinar, we are going to be talking through daily habits that could be impacting your sperm health, from your diet to your sleep habits to drinking and more. We will be giving you action items, which are essentially tasks that you can take on to improve your fertility, whether you are trying to conceive now or in the future or considering freezing your sperm. This event is sponsored by Legacy. Legacy is a sperm testing and freezing company. We offer at-home semen sample collection for semen analysis testing, DNA fragmentation testing, and sperm cryopreservation or sperm freezing. Our mission is really to spread awareness of the many factors that affect sperm health and to help men take control of their fertility and their overall health. Our fertility expert tonight is Stephanie Sporen. Steph is a nurse and she is the head of clinical services here at Legacy. Her professional background is in urology, specifically in men's health, and she has been working in this space for the past decade. She is certified in andrology, which is the science of sperm and men's health. Here at Legacy, Steph serves as a clinical educator, so she works with physicians and clinics, as well as the general public, doing basically webinars and information sessions and education sessions like this one. She also meets directly with Legacy clients, conducting fertility consultation calls for those who are looking to better understand their results and get next steps and options for their future. So if you do a test with Legacy and you schedule a call to go over your results, you very well may be meeting with Steph directly. I'm Alicia. I am the director of content at Legacy, and I'm a science and health writer by trade. I've been working and writing in this field for about a decade, so I'll be able to share some of the research that I've read as part of my work.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Before we can talk about what impacts sperm as well as how to improve sperm, first we need to better understand a little bit more about fertility parameters in general and what they mean for you. So there are 5 key metrics that we look at when we're analyzing sperm. The first is going to be concentration or count. Those terms are used interchangeably. Sperm concentration refers to the actual number of sperm cells that are present in 1 milliliter of semen. Sperm concentration is important for several reasons. So for one, higher concentrations of sperm increase the likelihood of one sperm being able to successfully fertilize an egg, which is obviously essential for conception to occur. Also, by identifying low sperm counts, healthcare providers can help to diagnose fertility issues, recommend appropriate treatments or interventions that you may need. Also, abnormal sperm concentration or counts can sometimes indicate an underlying health problem. So this could be something like a hormonal imbalance or genetic conditions you may not be aware of, or even infections that could be present. Sperm motility refers to the ability of sperm to be able to move efficiently. It's not just about how many sperm there are, but also how well they can swim and move. The good motility is crucial for sperm to be able to navigate through the female reproductive tract to be able to reach an egg for fertilization. Sperm that move really well have a better chance of fertilizing an egg. People who have poor sperm motility can really have significantly reduced chances of natural conception success. Factors such as lifestyle, which we're going to talk a lot about today, diet, exposure to toxins, all of these things can negatively affect motility. Semen volume refers to the actual amount of semen that is ejaculated during an orgasm. Now, semen is the fluid that carries sperm through the male reproductive system to the female reproductive system during intercourse. Typically, a normal semen volume ranges anywhere from 1.5 to say 5 milliliters. That's definitely on the high end, usually a little closer to that 1.5 point. Sperm only actually make up a very small portion of the volume of that ejaculate. Ejaculate is predominantly made up of seminal fluids alone. Having an adequate volume is necessary to transport those sperm through the female reproductive tract, like I said. So sufficient volume ensures that sperm have a better chance of reaching and then fertilizing the egg. Also, it's important to know low semen volume could potentially indicate a blockage or infection, even a hormonal imbalance or problems with the seminal vesicles or prostate gland. Also, semen volume can be affected by all sorts of other health factors. So this can be things like, especially hydration is one of the top things. So your hydration status overall, your diet, your stress levels, and even certain prescription medications can impact your semen volume. Total motile count is a measure that is used in semen analysis to evaluate male fertility. This one represents the total number of moving or motile sperm that are in an ejaculate. Now, this count is calculated by multiplying the total number of sperm by the percentage of those that are moving or motile, and then multiplying by the semen volume. Total motile count really gives a more complete picture of a man's fertility potential, more so than just sperm concentration or motility alone. Is going to consider not just how many sperm are present, but also how many are capable of moving effectively. So it's really important to have all of those pieces, especially when you're talking about natural conception. I do want to mention morphology as well. So morphology refers specifically to size and shape alone. Now, this can provide insights into sperm quality and reproductive health, but I always say this is some gray area here. It is often considered the least critical parameter in a semen analysis. So factors like concentration and motility are generally much more decisive in determining male fertility potential. Sperm morphology is highly subjective. It really depends on a lot of things, the criteria that's being used when analyzing and the individual observer's expertise, because this is a visual examination, so it is subjective. This variability can make it much less reliable than something like concentration or motility, which is a little bit more definite. Abnormal morphology can affect the ability of sperm to fertilize an egg, but it is often not as directly impactful as something like a low sperm count or a poor motility would be. Most men with abnormal morphology at the end of the day can still conceive naturally, especially if the other parameters on the analysis are within normal ranges. The last thing I want to touch upon is something called sperm DNA fragmentation. This refers to the presence of breaks or damage in the genetic material that is contained within sperm. The DNA is a long, tightly wound thread of instructions, really, that are necessary for creating a new life. If this thread has breaks or if it is damaged, it can affect the ability of the sperm to successfully fertilize an egg and support healthy embryo development.
So while the other metrics, higher is better, for DNA fragmentation, higher is not ideal, right? You want lower DNA fragmentation, lower percentages of damaged sperm. If someone does have high levels of damaged sperm, what might that mean for them and for their chances?
A few different things. In relation to fertility and conception, higher levels of DNA fragmentation in sperm are going to reduce the chances of successful fertilization and implantation. Also, it can impact embryo development. So healthy embryo development relies on intact and high quality DNA from both the sperm and the egg. DNA fragmentation in sperm can compromise the genetic integrity of the embryo. Even if the sperm can fertilize an egg, highly damaged DNA can lead to poor embryo quality and lower the chances of a pregnancy making it to term. So that takes us to miscarriage risk. So higher DNA fragmentation equals higher risk of miscarriage. Embryos may start developing, but if the damaged DNA is too highly damaged, it can cause developmental issues that result in pregnancy loss in the end. DNA fragmentation can be a good indicator of male health overall. It can reflect overall reproductive health. It can be influenced by lots of factors and things like your lifestyle choices, for example. So addressing these factors can also help to directly improve sperm quality. Now, semen analysis testing evaluates all of these key parameters of male fertility. Together, the parameters give really more of a holistic picture of your overall sperm health. Lifestyle adjustments, they can impact sperm quality. They can actually significantly improve sperm quality by positively influencing the various parameters of semen analysis. So I'll go over what you can do to improve your lifestyle factors that may be impacting your fertility today. Sperm have a life cycle, 72 to 74 days, depending on who you ask. Positive changes that you make will take that long to take full effect or for you to see peak benefits. You want to keep in mind also that sperm don't cycle all at once. So every day, new sperm are coming into maturation. Older ones are being reabsorbed by the body as well as expelled from the body. It's a combination of the two. So these numbers are ever changing.
So it seems like you should really start making these changes 2 to 3 months in advance of when you would ideally be using that sperm.
Yes. Usually I tell people think in 90-day increments because it's hard to remember the precise amount of days, but 90 days is an easy number to remember.
As Steph mentioned, changes to your lifestyle can substantially improve sperm health. So today we're going to be talking through some of the factors that are most likely to impact male fertility and some actions that you can take to improve that element of your lifestyle. We're going to be talking about nutrition, alcohol, smoking, drugs, sleep, exercise, testicular temperature, stress, endocrine disrupting chemicals like plastics, and sperm testing. And sperm testing is really the ideal first step to take in understanding and improving your fertility. Let's start with nutrition. We're going to look at this fertility food pyramid. Essentially, this will give us an overview of diet recommendations for optimal sperm health. And then Steph will sort of dive a little bit deeper into the recommendations and the research behind them. Let's look first at foods you should be limiting. These are things you should be consuming sparingly. Sparingly in our case means once a week or less. This includes things like red meat, processed meats, added sugars, and fried food. And I will pass it over to Steph to dive into the research.
Clinical research tells us that consumption of red meat, specifically processed red meats like burgers or hot dogs, are associated with lower sperm counts, low sperm quality, and also with that subsequently comes lower chances of getting a partner pregnant.
I think this is really interesting because a lot of people think in order to increase their testosterone or improve male health, they should be eating red meat. But actually, the research shows us quite the opposite, that you should really be eating more veggies, more lettuce, more greens. I really think that's sort of an interesting myth to bust.
Also, diets that are high in added sugars, especially from, in particular, sugar sweetened sodas, can lead to increased levels of oxidative stress and poor sperm motility by promoting the production of something called reactive oxygen species, disrupting energy metabolism, causing issues with mitochondrial function, and they cause inflammation, which all of those things lead to hormonal imbalances and obesity, which can impact fertility negatively. By reducing added sugar intake and adopting a more balanced diet rich in things like essential nutrients can help to mitigate these effects and improve overall sperm quality and reproductive health. Now, remember when we talk about these sugars, I'm not talking about natural sugars, things found in fruit. These are not problems that come from strawberries and oranges and apples and things like that. We're talking about added sugars here.
So next we'll be looking at foods to be consumed moderately, a couple times a week as a sort of occasional part of your diet. They don't need to be eliminated, but just sort of moderated. Some examples of these are poultry, eggs, dairy, soy, and caffeine, which I think all of us legacy are probably a little bit too into. Steph, what can you tell us about caffeine?
Yes, I'm a big coffee drinker, but excessive caffeine. So, when I say excessive, I'm talking about more than 3 cups of coffee per day. Excessive amounts of caffeine in research have been shown to lower sperm count and quality. Although, good news, low to moderate caffeine consumption does not tend to impact sperm health. So if you, like me, enjoy a cup of coffee in the morning, you don't need to give it up. But if you're one of those 3 or more energy drinkers per day types, then you're definitely going to want to take a look at that and consider making some lifestyle changes there.
So I know there has been a lot of concern about soy because soy contains phytoestrogens, right, which are essentially plant estrogens. So there has been some theorizing that eating a lot of soy or a lot of foods with phytoestrogens could impact male fertility hormones. But what does the research say about that?
So the research on that honestly is pretty mixed overall with soy foods. There was a recent study that found high soy intake was associated with lower sperm concentration. But then another study found that men who ate more soy and they had higher sperm motility. So it's hard to say. There's been some mixed findings on soy foods overall and sperm quality. But it would suggest that the impact of soy on male fertility really is just not straightforward. I think it mostly depends on some individual differences, study design, the dietary context, and the specific aspects of sperm quality that are being measured. So, for example, men who eat a lot of soy are also more likely to be vegetarian or vegan. And so they might have higher intakes than the average person would of things like vegetables and a lower intake of things like processed red meats we talked about. So we can't really rule out those confounding factors there. It really becomes more difficult to discern what specifically or exclusively is impacting their sperm more, the soy or all of those healthy veggies that they're eating. Hard to say.
Yeah.
I think that overall further research is going to be needed to better understand these relationships and to identify which factors are going to influence how soy affects sperm quality. But in the meantime, I would say moderation, balanced diet are advisable for anybody who's concerned about their reproductive health.
Let's look at some things you should be eating often. So when we say often, we're talking about like every day, every other day, that kind of thing. Those are foods like seafood, olive oil, whole grains, and legumes. So beans and nuts and things like that.
Yes, seafood is actually considered to be a sperm superfood. We love it. So the reason being is that fish contains omega-3 fatty acids and B12. Shellfish in particular also has omega-3 fatty acid and zinc as well. So these nutrients have all shown to benefit and even to help improve sperm production overall. So we love fish.
With all the positives of consuming a lot of seafood, there comes the flip side of that coin, which is that there's been a lot of research that seafood is a known source of microplastic and endocrine disrupting chemicals that are known to sort of negatively impact sperm quality. And we will be diving into those just a little bit later in this presentation. But I think this is an important sort of caveat to the idea of eating seafood quite frequently. But surprisingly, I was surprised to hear this. You can actually remove or eliminate some of those microplastics just by washing and preparing your fish, washing it under running water prior to preparing it. And smaller fish like anchovies or sardines are less likely to accumulate microplastics and EDCs than like larger predatory fish. So there are some little like choices that you can make that can reduce the impact of that overall so that you can safely eat seafood, even though a lot of the seafood that we are exposed to has sort of these harmful chemicals in it.
Also, eating a diet that's rich in whole grains. So, this is going to be things like oatmeal, quinoa, or brown rice, have been associated with higher sperm motility, concentration, and even higher testosterone levels.
Okay, finally, we're coming to foods we should be eating frequently. These are things that you should be having for multiple servings per day. I don't think it should surprise any of you that vegetables are foods you should be eating multiple times a day. But Steph, can you talk about some of the research around veggies?
Yeah, absolutely. And no one should be surprised that fruit and vegetables are good for you. I hope you have heard this before in your lifetime. But multiple studies have found that diets that are rich in fruits and vegetables are associated with improved sperm health. So these foods tend to be rich in antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals, which help to protect sperm from oxidative damage and really just to support overall reproductive health.
Mhm.
Now, nuts and seeds are great for male fertility because they are just absolutely packed with nutrients that help to support sperm health as well. So, omega-3 fatty acids, just like we find that in some seafoods, it's also found in walnuts and some other nuts as well. This helps improve sperm count and motility. Nuts and seeds are rich in antioxidants like vitamin E and selenium, which can protect sperm from damage and improve overall sperm quality. Now, many nuts and seeds, specifically pumpkin seeds, actually, contain zinc, which is essential for sperm production and overall hormonal health. Then we have amino acid that is found in high amounts in nuts, and that helps to support sperm motility and overall reproductive function. So, nuts like almonds are a good source of folate, which is important for DNA synthesis and repair, which helps to reduce that sperm DNA fragmentation that I talked about a little bit ago. And just of note, so a typical serving size of nuts, one serving is about 28 grams, which is roughly a small handful or about an ounce. So something that's really manageable.
Yeah, so that 60 grams a day is like two handfuls a day, right? It's like
Yeah,
morning snack and an afternoon snack. So it sounds easy enough. I think it's
exactly.
also really great to include seeds in this conversation, seeds like pumpkin seeds. They have a similar nutritional profile to nuts, but I know that nut consumption is obviously going to be really difficult for people with nut allergies, right? So seeds are a great option for those folks.
Absolutely.
So I just want to really quickly talk about like why are we talking about diet? Steph has really delved into how diet might affect sperm concentration, sperm motility, and sort of the things that allow you to conceive. But there's a lot of new research suggesting that a man's diet when he's trying to conceive could not only impact his sperm health, but also the health of his children. So I just want to take a minute to explain how that might work. The research is still in its infancy, and we are talking about animal studies here. But there are two studies, recent ones, that found that high carb and high fat diets, so essentially diets that are like less healthy than the ideal, were associated with changes in offspring health. So in one, the offspring of male mice that were fed a less healthy diet actually had higher levels of anxiety. They had higher body fat and higher markers of metabolic disease like diabetes. In the other study, they also found that, again, offspring of male mice with unhealthy diets were more likely to have metabolic issues like diabetes. But they also found differences in certain types of RNA in the male mice's sperm. So the theory is that diets can cause cellular changes to the sperm, the DNA inside the sperm, that can then pass down certain traits to their offspring. So again, this research is really in its infancy, but I think it's important to note because what we're talking about here can really be much bigger than just fertility and whether or not you're able to achieve a pregnancy.
Yeah, it speaks to the epigenetic effects that we see all the time with endocrine disrupting chemicals in human exposures. So
Mhm.
really important research. Now, supplements can help to fill in these nutritional gaps that might be in existence here. So supplements have been pretty heavily researched over the years, and there is clinical evidence that supports that certain supplements do improve sperm quality. Now, usually I recommend sort of two different options based on what you're doing or taking currently. But in general, I would say the first or easiest is going to be just taking a comprehensive male fertility supplement blend. Now, not all supplements are created equally, and it is really important to read labels to be sure that the dosing is right. So, if you're looking at a supplement blend, it needs to be something that specifically contains 300 to 400 milligrams per day of CoQ10, in addition to other ingredients like vitamin D, vitamin C, D-aspartic acid, folate, zinc, magnesium. There's a lot. Those are just a few of the big ones. If you don't want to take a comprehensive blend, you could sort of, the second option is sort of Mickey Mousing together a varied amount of supplements. I would say starting off with an over-the-counter one-a-day multivitamin. You can buy these at any retail pharmacy. In addition to that one-a-day multivitamin, you are going to want to add in 300 to 400 milligrams per day of CoQ10. That is a set amount based on research that you need to be taking. In addition to that CoQ10, 2,000 milligrams a day of vitamin C that comes in delicious chewable gummy form or pill form, whichever is going to make you take it. And also, I do like what I'm reading, quite a bit of research that's being done and continues to be done around something called ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is an Indian ginseng supplement in doses of 675 milligrams per day and higher. So you don't want to go below that. You can go higher. It has had a really positive impact on fertility. With ashwagandha, though, I do warn people, it does have somewhat of an unpleasant smell and taste to it. Similar to what you hear people say, fish oil sometimes bothers people because of an unpleasant smell and taste. If you're not sensitive to that, I would highly recommend ashwagandha. If those types of things bother you or you have a sensitivity to, you might want to skip that one.
So this brings us to our first action item, which is really to look at your nutrition, look at your diet. Eat more fruits, veggies, nuts, and seeds. Those should be frequently consumed foods. Eat less sugar and processed red meat. And then if you look at your diet and you see that there are nutritional gaps, consider increasing your nutrient intake with supplements. So this is everyone at home, this is your first action item.
You got
Okay,
it.
we're going to move on to talking about alcohol, smoking, and drugs. Let's talk about sort of the impact of our alcohol consumption on sperm health.
Yeah. So starting with the alcohol, the best way to explain this is imagining your sperm as swimmers in training, right? So they need the perfect balance of practice, nutrition, and rest to be able to perform their best. So here's where the alcohol comes in. So let's say you're throwing a party with 5 or more drinks every week. Your swimmers might get a little bit too wild. They can become lazy, uncoordinated, and just not in the mood for the Olympic level performance needed for baby making. So research shows us that this can lead to poor semen parameters. Really, you want to think of it as sort of a hangover for your sperm, which nobody wants. Now, on the flip side, inviting your swimmers over for a few drinks each week. So let's say that moderate happy hour can actually make them happier and more motivated. So if they're in good spirits, literally, and ready to swim straight and fast, studies suggest that guys who have a few drinks each week actually have better sperm quality than those who skip the party altogether. Now, if you completely banish alcohol from your life, that's okay too. But it is like keeping your swimmers in more of a strict training camp with not as much fun. So sure, they are definitely going to be healthier, but a little cheer may actually do them some good. Research hints that completely abstaining can actually make your sperm a bit too serious and not quite as lively. So really, at the end of the day, like most things in life, moderation is key. So cheers to that. You can still consume alcohol, but just keep it to a few. Now, in simple terms, when we're talking about tobacco smoking, that's a little bit different. So smoking makes sperm counts drop. They're going to be less effective at swimming, oddly shaped, and more likely to have genetic damage. Now, all of this can add up to reduced fertility as well as higher chances of complications. So, for healthier and happier sperm, really, in this case, it is best to completely avoid tobacco at all.
So it sounds like
Now,
with drinking, there's a little wiggle room, whereas with smoking, it's not.
not so
No
much.
cigarettes, no vape. Get it out of here.
None of that. Yeah, with smoking, really, it's a nothing. Um, Good news is that if you are someone who consumes tobacco products, if you quit now, your sperm can recover in as little as 6 months' time. So there is hope for those of you who may have been smokers or vapors. Just giving that up for, after a matter of 6 months, you should, in most cases, see a full recovery of sperm health. Now, I want to talk about cannabis because cannabis works a little bit differently within the body than cigarette or tobacco smoke would. Cannabis products negatively impact sperm by reducing their counts by a third, reducing motility, and also it can cause some pretty abnormal shapes. Disrupts hormone regulation overall and causes DNA damage. So, all of these things lead to difficulties with conception as well as higher miscarriage risks.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting because this photo here on the right-hand side is of a banana-shaped sperm. And I don't know if y'all are familiar with what sperm should look like, but it is not that. And
Not, definitely not that.
this is specifically one of the abnormalities that is more common amongst chronic marijuana users. So if you do not want banana-shaped sperm, and that is the scientific term, if you do not want banana-shaped sperm, you need to reduce or at least temporarily eliminate cannabis consumption.
Yes, I would recommend eliminating it while you are trying to get the healthiest sperm possible. Now, all recreational drugs overall act as toxins and can negatively impact sperm health. It is best to avoid these substances entirely as well. Keeping your sperm healthy means steering clear of all harmful toxins. So, street drugs or recreational drugs are all considered harmful toxins. Now, even prescribed medications can impact sperm health. And I'll touch upon a few. This is definitely not an exhaustive list, but it's really just a few of the most common offenders that can impact fertility. So things like chemotherapy drugs, testosterone, anabolic steroids, or anything you get from a guy at the gym out of a duffel bag, wink, wink. A medication called finasteride or Propecia. So that's a medication that's commonly used for hair loss prevention. There's a particular drug class of antidepressant medications called SSRIs. Now, not all antidepressants are in this drug class, but those that are do tend to negatively impact sperm health. Also, alpha blocker medications, which are commonly used to treat things like high blood pressure, anxiety, migraines, prostate issues, or even kidney stones, all have impacts to fertility. Now, I want to be very clear when I say that I do not want anyone to stop taking prescribed medication without speaking to their doctor first. Okay. I'm going to tell you to stop smoking without talking to your doctor, but not to stop taking actual prescribed medications. Also, really the best resource as to whether or not your particular maybe I didn't name a medication that you're taking. The best resource as to whether or not it's impacting your fertility is not going to be your doctor prescribing it. It's going to be your pharmacist. They truly are the best resource for all things pharmaceutical. They have that lovely convenient window in the drugstore. It means you have to get out of the drive-through line and walk in to talk to them, but you can talk to your pharmacist at no cost at any time, and they can really give you a better idea about that.
I was muted. That brings us to our next action item, which is first, quit smoking, quit cannabis, and all other drugs. Reduce those toxins overall. Reduce your drinking to that less than 5 drinks per week that Steph talked about earlier, and talk to your doctor or your pharmacist about your prescribed medications. And with that, we will move on to sleep.
Most of us actually don't tend to get enough sleep, myself included. But it is an extremely important part of the body's recovery process, and really good quality sleep is needed for good sperm health. They go hand in hand. Ideally, you should be aiming for 7 to 8 hours a night of uninterrupted sleep. That uninterrupted part's really important. So turn off the TV, stay off your phone in bed. For many people, actually an extra hour of sleep outweighs an extra hour in the gym. So try and really prioritize getting some good quality sleep. Research shows us that 6 hours or less of sleep per night leads to reduced sperm counts and motility. Peak sperm quality happens when you hit that magic window of 7 to 8 hours of nightly sleep. So that's where you should be aiming.
So what is going on with the 9 hour people? You would think that those getting 9 or more is better, but apparently not.
No, more is not necessarily better. So it's the quality, the sleep quality is really important. So if somebody is sleeping more than 9 hours a night, in most cases, not all, but most, it could indicate that there's some other issues going on here.
Yeah.
So things like sleep apnea. So this is broken sleep, people who are struggling with depression, other illnesses that they could have. So those people who are sleeping more than 9 hours a night should think about speaking with their doctor. You can talk to your primary care doctor about that. And also look into potentially having a sleep study done to see if you are somebody who maybe has a little something going on that you're not aware of. Those things like sleep apnea are really easy to address.
So it's like if you're in bed for 10 hours and you're still waking up maybe a little tired, doesn't really mean that you're getting 10 hours of that solid quality sleep. And so you might want to look into that.
Exactly.
Right?
You
Yeah.
got it. That's exactly it.
So that brings us to our next action item, which, surprise, surprise, is focus on getting 7 to 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep per night. So that means, don't sleep with the TV on. Try to create an ideal sleep environment for yourself, good sleep hygiene, all those sorts of things to really focus on getting that optimal amount of sleep. Next, we're going to talk about exercise. So, as Steph mentioned, an hour of sleep might outweigh an hour in the gym, but what could happen if you spend an hour in the gym? Let's find out.
So it's not just whether or not you do or don't exercise, it's the type of exercise that plays a huge part in your fertility. Moderate, surprisingly, for many people, moderate exercise is what's actually recommended. So this can look like lots of different things. This can be jogging, it could be some lightweight training, walking, or even yoga class. Now, if you have not left your couch or seen the inside of your gym in the last 5 or 10 years, that's okay, judgment-free zone. But please don't go nuts joining a CrossFit gym tomorrow and starting taking boot camp classes and things like that. If you're trying to get back into exercise, you want to start slow, keep it moderate. If you go too hard and too fast, really at the end of the day, you're probably just going to hurt yourself overdoing the exercise, and then you're just going to be laid up, not doing much of anything on the couch. So keep it easy. Now, there is research that I am basing this statement on when I tell you moderate exercise is what's recommended. So clinical research shows us that the largest improvements in sperm health related to exercise come from just moderate intensity workouts. So meaning that walking or jogging for anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes, 3 to 6 times a week really is the best. These moderate exercises yielded better results than more vigorous or high intensity workouts did. So the bottom line here is really just to get out there and take a walk. It's that simple. Now, certain physical activities have been associated with reduced fertility potential. So things that are individually going to be quite harmful specifically to male fertility. And these are things that I would tell you to really avoid as much as possible or for as long as possible, especially if you're trying to conceive or just trying to optimize your sperm health to have the best quality sample to freeze. And those are going to be things that you want to avoid, things like high altitude exercises. So this is hiking in the mountains, not taking a walk, but things that have to do with altitude or mountaineering. Long distance running. We don't mind walking, jogging, but those marathoners, ultra marathoners, you may want to throttle back a little bit. Also, biking or cycling. So this could be spinning exercise bikes or regular bikes. And then bodybuilding. So those heavyweight lifters, people who are doing max outs. Again, you might want to switch it up to some lower weights.
So it seems like there's sort of a balance here, right? Anything that could stress your body out too much could potentially have a detrimental impact, the opposite of the desired impact on your fertility.
Exactly. It is a delicate balance.
So the action item here is to implement a regular moderate exercise routine, such as walking, jogging, or yoga 3 to 6 times a week. I do want to make a note that we want this to be regular yoga and not that hot yoga that Steph will talk about in just a second, because our next topic is testicular temperature and the overheating of the testes, which hot yoga may play a factor in. So let's talk
Yeah.
about that, Steph.
Yeah. So, well, fun fact time for everyone. So, if you don't already know this, your testicles are on the outside of your body for a reason. That reason is that they like to be about 3.5 degrees cooler than your internal organs do. Now, every guy knows what happens if you were to go polar plunge it, you're jumping into an ice cold body of water. What's going to happen? Well, your testicles are going to pull up tightly and closely to your body. That is their self warming mechanism. So, just like if you were to be outside sweating it out on a hike because it's 120 degrees in the shade, I don't know why you'd be hiking in that kind of weather, but to each his own. What's going to happen? Well, of course, your testicles are going to hang looser and lower from your body. That is their self cooling mechanism. Now, anything that you do individually that can inhibit your body's natural ability to self regulate that testicular temperature is going to negatively impact your sperm production and your overall sperm health. So, just a few of the most common things that I talk to people about almost daily that are going to overheat the scrotum. So, these are things I would want you to avoid entirely. Again, not for the rest of your life on some of these things, everything here in moderation, okay? But definitely while you're trying to optimize sperm health or trying to conceive, you'd want to avoid saunas or hot tubs. Even soaking in a regular bathtub, it's just that submersion in that hot water for a period of time, hard to avoid, but fevers when you're sick. Let's just hope you don't get sick, but those are things that can negatively impact your sperm health. Also, working with your laptop computer on your lap, wearing fitted pants or undergarments. So this is going to apply to things like briefs, boxer briefs, compression shorts, running tights, skinny jeans. There's lots of them. Biking or anything that what I call set to be saddle sports. So this is anything that has you seated in a straddled position. Bicycles, pelotons, motorcycles, horseback riding, anything like that. Also, those heated seats in your car. Obviously, that's a bit seasonal or depending on where you live. Not so much right now in the summer, but definitely in the winter or those cooler months, avoid using those heated seats. And not listed on this slide, but I always try to make mention of it. Like Alicia said, hot yoga classes. I love yoga for wellness. It's fantastic, but not the hot yoga. Your testicles cannot leave that hot room and get away from it, and that can have detrimental impacts to your fertility. It seems to be sort of a hot trend at the moment. Everyone is out there selling out of chest freezers everywhere you go, but everybody's turning them into home ice baths for their backyards. A big trend that along with the underwear inserts that they have, like you said, those snowballs underwear, they are no good for your sperm. So extreme cold can disrupt the sort of delicate temperature balance that I talked about earlier, by reducing sperm counts, motility, and overall sperm quality. So just like those high temps are not good, those really low temps aren't either. You really have to stay in that happy medium in the middle.
Okay, so our action item here is just to basically avoid, at least temporarily, these activities. Switch to looser pants, looser underwear, and don't really rely on those cold plunges to save your sperm, essentially.
That's right.
The next topic we will talk about is stress, and a lot of us are probably familiar with this.
Yes. And this is obviously easier said than done. I can tell everyone just don't have stress in your life. That's really simple for me to say. Sometimes in practice, not so simple. So, research on stress's impact on sperm health is actually a bit mixed. So, isolated acute stress or chronic stress can contribute to lower sperm counts, lower semen volume, and impaired testicular function.
So isolated acute stress, I think, is in reference to things like a death in the family, a move, like a short-term stressful situation, whereas chronic stress is like you have a job that you feel burned out at and you work a lot of long hours. One might be a little bit more in control than the other. So the action item here is really to explore ways to reduce or manage that chronic stress that's more in your control than those isolated stressful incidents. Meditation, reducing your overall workload, managing burnout. There's a ton of different ways that you can go about this, but we really highly recommend exploring ways to reduce or manage that chronic stress.
Absolutely. Lots of health benefits to doing that.
Totally. It's like, even if it doesn't benefit your sperm, it's good for pretty much every other part of your body,
Everything.
right?
Yes.
Our last topic is endocrine disrupting chemicals. And this is a big topic that we will not get into in depth tonight because there's just way too much to talk about. But we actually have an entire hour-long webinar about this. So this is just a really high-level overview, but I really want to talk about it here because when you think about your lifestyle and you think about the products that you're using, really are part of your overall lifestyle. So Steph, can you talk us through what endocrine disruptors are, how they work, and what to avoid?
Yes. Now, this is a really important topic. Endocrine disruptors, these are chemicals that can interfere with your body's endocrine system. So the endocrine system is responsible for producing hormones that regulate various bodily functions. Now, these disruptors can work in a few different ways. So one way is by blocking hormone pathways. So some endocrine disruptors can block the pathway between a natural hormone and its receptor, preventing the hormone from carrying out its normal function. So if you think of the endocrine disrupting chemical as a key that is blocking the receptor, like a lock, like what we've shown here in this image. Now, direct effects on glands also happen. So endocrine disruptors could directly impact glands, causing them to either produce too much or too little of any particular hormone, disrupting that delicate balance that's needed for proper bodily functions. And when I say that, fertility is one of them. Also, they are pesky little things, those EDCs, and they can mimic hormones. Now, certain chemicals in endocrine disruptors can mimic natural hormones in the body. So when these chemicals imitate or mimic hormones, they can lead to overreactions or trigger responses at inappropriate times, causing disruptions in the overall endocrine system. And when you throw that balance off, everything's off. So really, just simply put, is that endocrine disruptors can really mess up how your hormones work by blocking pathways, influencing gland functions, or just pretending to be a hormone themselves when they are not.
So the reason why this is so important is that there has been a worldwide decline in sperm count and sperm quality that Steph will go over in just a second. And why is this happening? One of the major factors, like probably the primary factor, is believed to be endocrine disrupting chemical exposure. So these are the plastics, the pesticides, the fragrances, and all of that we're exposed to every day, along with our lifestyle that we've been talking about this entire evening. Our lifestyle and endocrine disrupting chemical exposure together are really believed to be sort of the bad combo that is lowering sperm quality worldwide.
It's true. And I hate to sound like an alarmist here, but I mean, we are facing a global fertility crisis. I mean, this is real. These numbers are real. The research is real. Sperm counts have been declining and continue to decline by 2.6% year over year. Now, average sperm count back in 1973 was 99 million sperm per milliliter. Well, in 2011, which is only 38 years later, average sperm count globally dropped down more than half. It went down to 47.1 million per milliliter. And there was research that happened, another study that was published in 2016 that showed an even more rapid decline than what had happened in the previous years. So really where this leaves us is that today we are only really less than half as fertile as our grandparents were. These are serious concerns, things that we really need to pay attention to. The common sources of endocrine disrupting chemicals, again, not exhaustive, but I'll rattle off a few of the most common. These are going to be in pesticides that are used preparing and growing even those healthy fruits and vegetables that we're eating. It's in our drinking water, plastic toys, personal care products, or really anything you have that has fragrance in it, household cleaners, carpeting, even food and drink packaging, flame retardant chemicals. Most people say I don't buy flame retardant chemicals, but these are things that are found in couches. I mean, we all have furniture in our homes. They're found in your clothing. Also, waterproofing material or stain proofing chemicals. These are all in our everyday fabrics that we are wearing on our bodies.
Yeah, they just there was just a study that there were PFAS. That's
Mhm.
an abbreviation for very long EDC, found in Lululemon leggings, and I'm sure that's not the only like major company that is going to be sort of faced with that type of allegation. So this is sort of a widespread thing, and that can feel a little bit overwhelming. So I just want to say there is a certain amount of consumer control over the types of things that you are buying. And research has looked at, there's been studies where, they measure the levels of EDCs in people's blood before, and then they make some certain lifestyle changes, buying organic produce, buying less plastic, using glass and stainless steel instead of plastic Tupperware. And then they measure their EDC levels again afterwards, and they find a significant difference. So it is possible to reduce your overall toxic load just by making some different consumer choices. So that brings us to our next action item, which is to reduce your exposure to EDCs. Essentially, swap your household and your personal care items for EDC-free versions. Do your research and try to use the cleanest versions of the products where you can. The last section that we have here is to talk about sperm testing. The ideal time to be testing your sperm is before you start trying to conceive. And that goes back to what Steph brought up earlier, that period of time that it takes for you to see the impact of improvements in your sperm quality and to really reach that optimal sperm health. So let's talk about what that looks like, Steph.
Yeah, let's talk about sperm testing. So, um, when it comes to sperm testing, the old ways or the older train of thought was that sperm health was not tested until you had been trying to conceive with no success after 12 months. This is actually still true today in most clinical settings. Now, the newer way of thinking is to be a little bit more proactive with testing. This can really empower you with information that can help you to conceive faster when you are ready to, but also it can help with early detection of any sort of possible fertility challenges you might have. And you can address those early to avoid losing years of time trying unsuccessfully. It takes a lot out of you. It can be exhausting, very stressful, and sometimes very costly. Now, I'll talk you through how semen analysis testing works with Legacy. First, you're going to collect a sample via masturbation. Now, with Legacy, this can be done from the comforts of home, which I don't have to tell anyone is infinitely less awkward than doing this in the doctor's office. Nobody wants to do this in the clinic. That sample is then picked up by FedEx right from your doorstep. There's a prepaid shipping label that comes with the kit. And it is delivered to our lab where it can be tested and or frozen and stored for later use. Results are available within 24 to 48 hours. It is literally that simple. It sounds crazy, but it really is that easy to do. There is no waiting for appointments. There are no referrals or physician orders needed. You don't need to talk to anyone if you don't want to. And there is no mandatory 12-month waiting period. Now, there's two different options for testing, and I'll talk you through what both of those look like because for some people, they may not know where to start. So first, you've got a standard semen analysis. So this is going to look at all of the key metrics I talked about at the very beginning of this. So we're looking at semen volume, sperm concentration or count. We're looking at motility, total motile sperm count, and morphology, all of those things we talked about in the beginning. There's also an advanced semen analysis test. Now, this includes everything that's in that standard analysis, but it adds in that one important addition of DNA fragmentation testing. So the next natural question is, how do I know if I need to do DNA fragmentation testing? Is this something that is right for me? So the answer to that is really anyone who's looking for a more in-depth look at their fertility can elect to have DNA fragmentation done. Anybody can do it. There are some people who really do need to do it and really should be. Those people are going to be infertility patients or people with unexplained infertility, meaning you've been trying unsuccessfully and you're not sure why things aren't working. Patients who've already been diagnosed with male factor infertility of an unknown cause. Patients with a history of miscarriage. Anyone who has already embarked on the IVF process but has had poor embryo quality and they've already started IVF, then you should really be doing this. Also, anyone who knows that IVF is going to be their necessary method of conception, which could be for many different reasons, issues on your partner's side or who your partner is. Also, people that need to be doing this, any man over the age of 35, men with a history of cancer, any men who are taking prescription medications, and anybody with lifestyle habits that can impact sperm health, like we talked about in this presentation tonight, such as smoking, marijuana use, high levels of alcohol consumption. I could go on and on. You remember all the things we talked about. Those are the people that really should be doing it.
So that brings us to our final action item, and that is get a semen analysis, folks. It's the perfect place to start. It gives you a baseline to really understand your fertility as it stands now, so that way you can judge the impact of any lifestyle changes that you're making. And then we want to talk about retesting after 3 months of implementing these lifestyle changes. And again, that goes back to that spermatogenesis production time that Steph talked about earlier, which is that we're talking about like 70 to 90 days to really see an impact of a lifestyle change in your sperm. So we highly recommend baseline testing, and then again in 3 months if you are making any lifestyle changes.